The Nature of Consciousness by Alfred Percy Sinnett. This piece is from Collected Fruits of Occult Teaching, published in 1919. Consciousness is recognized by all physiological students as a mystery they do not attempt to explain. We can trace the activities of life back through the muscles and the nerves, back to the brain, but whence came the original impulses in obedience to which the brain set the nerves to work on the muscles? That question is left aside as relating to a mystery beyond human understanding. Nor shall I attempt to clear up the mystery in the way we can sometimes accomplish this when dealing with purely physical phenomena. We must be content to treat consciousness as the fundamental divine principle of all manifestation. But the illuminating idea which I want to convey, is that divine consciousness, itself, is, in its nature, identical with any consciousness of which we can take cognizance, that in a word there is only one kind of consciousness in all creation, the consciousness of God, working through vehicles of varying capacity. Limited as we feel our own consciousness to be, it is in its nature identical with that of infinite divinity, as in the other direction with that of animal and even vegetable life. That which may be thought of as the efficient value of consciousness depends upon the vehicle in which it is working. Within the body of a sheep its limitations are narrow indeed, within that of an enlightened human being they seem enormously widened. But whether we go down in thought far below the sheep level, or ascend in imagination far above the human condition, we shall find that the vehicle of consciousness in all cases determines the extent to which consciousness itself can range over the infinitude of knowledge. When Darwin first started the evolutionary theory, some of us were inclined to regard him as having made the mistake of concerning himself with vehicles alone, ignoring the concurrent evolution of intellectual and spiritual capacity. Without, perhaps, fully realizing the magnitude of his own achievement, he was embracing in his view of nature both the physical and superphysical processes of evolution. Although by profound study the process can be comprehended even at the level of its obscure beginnings, the principle is better grasped if we confine our attention to the development of consciousness in the human being. By what law is the gradual improvement of the vehicle as time goes on provided for? Putting the answer in a brief phrase, susceptible of further development in detail, the law is that when consciousness within any given vehicle exerts itself to the utmost, or in other words, makes the best use of the vehicle in which it finds itself at any given time, the law, really a part of the great aggregation of karmic laws, proceeds to invest that volume of consciousness, that ego, with a better vehicle for its next physical manifestation. I must here quote a line or two from Tennyson, whose poetry, as we grow to appreciate it, is saturated with occult knowledge. He writes in one fragment to be found in almost the last published volume of his works, "The Lord let the house of a brute to the soul of a man, and man said, Am I your debtor? The Lord, not yet, but make it as clean as you can. And then I will let you a better." In these compact lines we have the whole idea I want to convey suggested, if not elaborated expressed. Make it as clean as you can means, of course, make the best use of it, and establish a karmic claim on an improved house or vehicle. We see the system working as we study the principles of reincarnation, working, of course, like most processes in nature in what seems at the first glance a lopsided fashion. The lover of music makes the best use of his musical faculties in the life when that desire first governs him, and, while perhaps neglecting other possibilities of improvement, he obtains in his next life a vehicle better adapted to the expression of musical thought. So with any other line of human activity. The lover of physical science finds life after life his capacity for comprehending the laws of physical nature ever and ever improving. The philanthropist, unconsciously to himself, is imbuing his permanent atoms with an ever-increasing eagerness to benefit his fellow creatures. down to the minor developments of intellectual capacity, the study of mathematics or philology, the same invariable principle may be discerned. No one can in one life clean all the rooms in his house, to follow Tennyson's metaphor, but by degrees all in turn will be found to have claimed his attention, with the ultimate result that the ego acquires a vehicle of consciousness perfected beyond the needs of commonplace life, and passes into the ranks of those we know something of, the masters of wisdom. As one burst of sunshine may illumine a landscape previously obscured by shadow, this simple idea seems to clear up whole realms of vague speculation concerning the processes we commonly refer to by the vague term evolution. And by the light so shed on the whole subject, we begin to put a scientific face upon a vast range of cloudy speculation embodied sometimes in the phrase the immanence of God in nature. Imagination, of course, reaches out vaguely towards the supreme problem: what is the nature of the vehicle within which divine consciousness works? And in that direction, at present, at all events, it is useless for us to aspire. But fully appreciated, the present interpretation of consciousness gives unity and meaning to the whole design of creation from mineral manifestation upward through organized life to infinitudes beyond. It will be found to harmonize with every great idea that theosophical thought has been endeavoring to deal with. A compact phrase I have often been fond of quoting rests in its significance on the principle I have been endeavoring to define: whatever is, has been, or will be, human. At the first glance the value of the phrase seems to reside in the promise it holds forth that all human creatures may aspire in thinking of the possibilities that await them towards absolute infinitudes of glorified existence, and it does that, but it puts, so to speak, a scientific face upon the magnificent prospect, and it fits in with every idea we have been taught to work with concerning the dependence of progress on individual exertion. No one is lifted to a loftier level of being than that on which he finds himself at any given moment, by any power exterior to himself. Helped by suggestion one, yes, we may all welcome such help as that, we can none of us dispense with it, but the suggestion must in all cases be a hint pointing to individual exertion. Actual progress in every case must be the product of individual will and effort, the effort to make the maximum use of life's opportunities, or, in other words, of the vehicle in which consciousness for the time being is working. Hardly any of the misty thoughts in which old-fashioned psychology indulged will remain clouded by vagueness when the principle I am dealing with gives them definite shape. I will venture on a subtle illustration of this idea. Thinkers who rather resent than aspire to clearly defined knowledge concerning the spiritual aspect of their own nature, are often fond of treating Christ as a state of consciousness. The awakening of the Christ within us, or some such vague interpretation of the idea, is held preferable to any specific knowledge concerning the levels in the divine hierarchy at which we find definitely in manifestation a being from whom the Christ principle actually emanates. Attached as many thinkers are to the cloudiness BF mysticism, the recognition of such a specific being seems to them to degrade the idea, and yet with the knowledge concerning the divine hierarchy that has been in theosophical possession almost since the beginning, we know that there is a specific being at a certain level within the divine hierarchy of the solar system, to whom we may definitely look up as the conscious source of all spiritual influence. This clear knowledge, far from degrading the aspiration in each individual ego to comprehend spirituality, is just as superior to the state of mind with which the mystic is content, as the landscape illuminated by sunshine is superior to the dim suggestion of partial obscurity. I undoubtedly in at org or teaching connected with spiritual truth mysteries still lie beyond any that are being by degrees cleared up, stretching beyond these to all infinity. But the more our knowledge is expanded, the better we realize that cloudiness of thought, uncertainty as we gaze upward, vagueness of expression as we attempt to put aspiration into words, are merely due to want of further knowledge. As definite and precise as our knowledge has now become in reference to the simple phenomena of chemistry, so defined and precise to a higher understanding must the conditions of spiritual life ultimately become, though to the ordinary human brain they must long remain incomprehensible. There is no inherent value in cloudiness of thought. That which we ought all to be aiming at in dealing with any of the mysteries hitherto embraced by the vague term occultism is clearness and precision of understanding. The truth, if we could comprehend it, is as clear and precise as any of those simpler truths of nature within our grasp, and the task before us is not that of continuing to treat spiritual research as something too sacred to be cramped by outline or form. There can be no spiritual truth so exalted and for us at the moment incomprehensible, which does not have as clear an outline and as defined a mental shape for consciousness working in appropriate vehicles as the simpler relationships of molecular physics already have for ourselves.